Well, the Taliban, as the word says, these are students. The original word is Talib-e-ilm, seeker of knowledge. And so for short, it's Talib, or Tulaba, and the plural is Taliban. These were the kids of the Afghan refugees who were accommodated by Pakistan on the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, when the Soviet forces had invaded Afghanistan and millions of people had fled. So the camps that were established there, these camps were actually supplied through the government of Pakistan with money coming both from the CIA and from Saudi Arabia. And the money was funneled through the political parties in Pakistan whose own worldview was very similar to the worldview that was advocated by Saudi Arabia. And this is what we call Wahhabi, that is exceedingly austere form of Islam. So these were the kids who were brainwashed over a period of time in that political religious ideology and prepared to go into Afghanistan and fight the Soviets. Osama bin Laden was one of those people who established a camp, and Al-Qaeda actually means register. And so it was he maintained a register of the Arabs who were coming to fight the Soviets, and so the organization Al-Qaeda and the ideology of the Taliban, that is the very austere, harsh political religious ideology. Now, these Taliban were at that time supported by Pakistan, by Saudi Arabia, by the United States, and they were fighting against the Soviet Union. Once the Soviets withdrew, the West had no further interest in Afghanistan, and Afghanistan was left a destroyed country for the Afghans to do nothing. The warlords are the tribal leaders who maintain their own armed militias. So there's the Abdul Rashid Dostum, the Uzbek, who is a great warlord. There was Gulabuddin Hekmatyar, Burhanuddin Rabbani, who was the head of the Northern Alliance. They all fought, they all killed each other, and massacres were just, untold. And it was in this situation that in 1994, the Taliban emerged. I'm pretty sure they were helped by Pakistan. And they were able to impose order, security, as I was talking about. And they were able to deal with these warlords and actually eliminate them. And that is how they were successful in capturing practically all of Afghanistan, except for a short strip which the Northern Alliance maintained. So the Taliban are those students. And as you know, that the oldest among them, Mullah Umar, was 40 years old. So they were all young people who had fought against the Soviets, and they fought against one of their own. Afghanistan is a tribal society, and people's first allegiance is to their tribes. And so on the departure of the Soviets, the tribal formations actually started to rest for power. And so there was basically a very uncivil war, and therefore terrible anarchy, and therefore also no security of life or dignity.
I just have one thing to add to that, actually. It's occurred to me that when we look at some of the unintended consequences of warfare, Professor Qureshi has explained how the Taliban emerged from the refugee camps, and Robert Fisk, who's a reporter for The Independent in the UK, who has interviewed Osama bin Laden on at least 2 occasions, went to Peshawar and visited some of these Taliban camps in the days during the Soviet occupation. And I guess my point is that one of the unintended consequences of warfare is that the Soviet occupation created a movement like the Taliban. and the very harsh Wahhabist, Salafist kind of laws that they brought back, particularly with respect to women, to Afghanistan, in some senses weren't traditional in Afghanistan, that these very harsh traditions and doctrines were bred in the misery of the camps and in the harshness of the camps. And it reminds me of the American bombing of Cambodia back in the 1980s, produced the Khmer Rouge. I mean, the Khmer Rouge took over Cambodia as a consequence of the misery, the unintended consequences of that American aerial bombardment there as well. It just alerts me to the fact that when you allow a war machine to begin its incursions into another country, we never really know where the chips are going to fall.